If you're new to my channel, I don't usually do reviews. I mostly analyze television shows and movies and then formulate theories on them. But for the next few months on my channel, I'm doing reviews as well. I'm rating some movies and shows based on my enjoyment of the show and how theorizable it is. 10 out of 10 would mean I thought it did everything right that it possibly could, and that it fit all of my criteria for an episode I would like. Since most episodes will be over 8 out of 10, I think of 8 as fine, 9 as good, and 10 as great. So let's begin, because I'm so excited to share how Stranger Things 3 holds up. And yes, there will be spoilers throughout this entire review. So, in my only theory on this season, when I analyzed that first trailer, the whole crux of my prediction was that this season would focus heavily on the Russians. There was no evidence for this, and everyone called me silly, yet I was 100% correct, and most of my video was also regarding Billy, and how intuitive it would be to merge him with the Mind Flayer. They did this as well. I expected all of this, so the show did not surprise me during moments it should have, but I have corrected for that in the calculations. As usual, the season started slow, introducing us back to the main characters. The first and last few minutes of the episode gave me chills, as it was everything I desired in my predictions. They did it wonderfully and, as usual, creepy as ever. The episode had a few rats blowing up, which shows how this season's theme is more violent, and then of course Billy is taken over by the Mind Flayer's awoken remnant. When I finish an episode, I don't just rank it. I try to equalize my biases by factoring in 5 separate ratings and then averaging them. This episode is around an 8 out of 10 on the creativity, and of course this is in context with the other seasons and how they started. Think of everything in context and how nothing usually slips below an 8. The quality overall was great, but they still hadn't entered the main crux of the season with all of the effects and music and stuff, so it's an 8.5 out of 10 here. The story is getting heated, but still an 8.5 out of 10 on that, and the same goes for characters. Not too much emotion yet, not too much fun, standard acting, another 8.5 out of 10 for them. Finally, the me factor, theorizability, and sci-fi fantasy plot-twisting cliffhangers. The plot is basic and undeveloped in episode 1, but still mysterious as ever, so I give it an 8.5 out of 10 as well, which all averages out to episode 1 getting 8.4 out of 10 points. Things only escalate from here. Episode 2 is good as well. The characters start to divvy up into their detective groups, as always. Billy and others start to deal with this supernatural horror, and Joyce goes on her neurotic conspiracy train again with magnets. We meet more main characters and learn a fragment of the Mind Flayer's new plan. My new and improved rating system goes up by half points, so that in the end, the system averages to any easy percent out of 100. This episode's a little more creative and is upped by half a point to an 8.5 out of 10 rating. Quality is around the same, 8.5 out of 10 points, but the story goes up half a point to the great rating of 9 out of 10 points. So do the characters and sci-fi theorizability. This episode is much more developing than the first one, which averages its rating as 8.8 out of 10 points, meaning I enjoyed the episode 88% of the time. Episode 3 is really where things pick up into Stranger Things territory, with Elle and Max looking into Billy's new evil, Nancy and Jonathan looking into the exploding rats, Steve and Dustin looking into the Russian conspiracy with their new pal Robin, and Joyce and Hopper trying to find out why they're there and how it all ties together. With the shocking cliffhanger ending this one gives, when Billy activates and takes the parents, the episode moves up a tier of almost everything. Creativity, quality, and story have all pushed straight into Stranger Things territory by the very end, and the characters are properly split. Characters are still a 9 out of 10 rating, but so now are the other 3. Theorizability madness, however, has shifted up to a 9.5 out of 10 rating because of the ending, and the mysteries everywhere else too. This averages it at a 9.1 out of 10 points, which seems much more Stranger Things now. I enjoyed this episode 91% of the time, which is equivalent to about an A- if I were to convert it to a perfectly split grading system. Episode 4 is true Stranger Things, climaxing in what could have actually passed as a mid-season finale. We see the Mind Flayer's temporary new destructive vessel and how it flays people's minds. Erica is easily this season's #1 show stealer and is by a long shot my favorite character this entire season. Hopper and Joyce learn that the Russians are here, Steve, Robin, Dustin, and Erica all enter their base, but the main development is the ending, where the 6 kids test if Billy is flayed. And he is. 11 has an amazingly epic fight with him, and he runs away, recuperating with an army of zombies and their king, the creepy blob of organic matter. Very Stranger Things this episode, plus the ending, which means, guess what? Every single metric moves up by half a point. That's a 9.5 out of 10 for creativity, quality, story, and characters, and a coveted 10 out of 10 for theorizability, all averaging episode 4 at a 9.6 out of 10, meaning I enjoyed it 96% of the time and give it an A rating. Episode 5 seems to be rated less on IMDb, but a lot happens. Joyce and Hopper evade death and kidnap a Russian scientist and take him to the second best show stealer this season, Murray. The comedic gang down below is exploring the Russian base and portal, but the ending. It's a battle of epic proportions, which in my opinion takes slightly less emotion, but far more sci-fi than the one against Billy. Nancy and Jonathan take out their fury on their flayed bosses in a creepy hospital, and when their bosses die, they melt and merge into a mini Flayer who chases them down. Horrific, but very Stranger Things. I actually didn't drop any points in this episode, but I did up a couple to 10 out of 10 as well. I brought the quality and story up to 10 out of 10 points, because honestly, the VFX and general filming of this episode, especially the end, is just wonderful. Creativity and characters are just as good as before, and this averages episode 5 at a 9.8 out of 10 rating, meaning I enjoyed a whopping 98% of it. Still an A rating, only 10 out of 10 gets my coveted A+ wonder. Episode 6 is probably one of, if not my favorite episode of the season based on the way it chilled me at the end of the episode. Once again, IMDb didn't see this episode the same way I did. At the moment, less people preferred it to the other episodes, but that end speech, the music playing, I officially nominated as the Mind Flayer's theme song. I'll admit, some of the interrogations all throughout this episode are less exciting, but they're all very funny and character-driven. The upside-down mind space ending is what gets every metric a 10, except the still 9.5 creativity for the lacking extra jump during interrogations. This means episode 6 is a shocking 9.9 out of 10 points, almost perfect, or rather, it almost did everything I wanted it to right, based only on that ending and how Billy's speech changed the whole season. This 9.9 out of 10 is more in context of the whole season and what it did than the episode itself. IMDb users gave episode 7 a relatively higher rating at the moment, but a lot of it is just them sitting in a theater, going to the fair, emotional discussions with character development, but non-excitement in other areas. This episode shines near the beginning and the very end. 11 fights the monster in all its glory, and it bites her, leaving a worm in her leg, which she has to remove. The poor Russian scientist dies a sad death, and Hopper has a pretty cool chase through halls of mirrors and funhouses. This episode is odd, because everything that was a 10 was still a 10, except for the slightly stagnant story in the middle, which I gave a 9. The creativity that was a 9.5 last episode has also dropped to a 9 because of this, but don't fear. This episode is still a 9.6 out of 10, which is barely a drop overall at all. The finale, though, my god. So the finale starts epically with 11 ripping the slug out and Hopper squishing it. They make it much more epic than it sounds. Joyce and Hopper completely infiltrate the Russian base beneath the mall with the help of Murray, with the goal of destroying the machine keeping open the portal that's allowing the Mind Flayer to exist here. There's an enormous chase around the mall and its environs with the Mind Flayer's bodily weapon of destruction, lots of violence, including the horror that is Dustin's girlfriend's requests of song. 11 convinces Billy to face his humanity, which he does, and the Mind Flayer kills him violently. Joyce turns the key on the machine after Hopper kills the Russian, which blows the machine up next to Hopper, killing him too. Sad, but I knew one of the three would die in here. Sam Owens shows up, late as ever, and months later, Eleven moves out with the buyers, leaving town. Sad life here indeed. The episode is a 10 all over, making it a complete 10 out of 10. I still did appreciate some of the epic scenes in other episodes more, but this is technically, indeed, barely a 10 out of 10. A+. Overall, the episodes average at around 9.4 out of 10 points, which is the same as every other season I've ranked. But aside from averages, how does this system hold up on the season as a collective whole? Well, Season 3 was a 9.5 on creativity, a 10 on quality, a 9.5 on story, a 10 on characters, and a 9.5 on theorizability. It's a 9.7 out of 10 rating. I enjoyed 97% of it, but I must watch it again. I ended up giving Season 1 a 9.7 out of 10 rating and Season 2 9.8 out of 10 points, simply because I prefer Lovecraftian and confusing horror as opposed to gore or zombies. I'd say Season 3 is ever so slightly better than Season 1, but both are still a 97% rating for me. Actually, you know what? They're pretty tied. You see, Season 3 is very open and mainstream feeling, and it lacks some of the horrific mystery Season 1 had and the shocking demons of Season 2, but it's nonetheless still amazing content from one of the best TV shows I have ever watched. Stay tuned and subscribe. Vote on the poll above now. I will take a weighted average of how you thought Stranger Things Season 3 was. Until next time, I'm the Theorizer. Expect theories every Friday, comment reviews every Sunday, and show reviews every Wednesday. Bye.